Good. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. I hope you guys have some beautiful weather as well. It's been a beautiful day here in Kazakhstan, where I currently am. So I hope you guys have been blessed with equally good weather. You are also, if you would like to talk, you are welcome to unmute yourself as well if you feel comfortable sharing, else you are welcome to type in the chat, either or, which is more comfortable. I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm guessing your name is Sumaya. I'm doing very well this evening, and yourself? From UAE. Oh, very nice. Nasiba Hamid, pleased to meet you. Let's see from our other participants. I see I have Nasamba Caroline. Where are you from? And Yasin, is it? Jala Nasarova from Azerbaijan. Smayatina from Bangladesh. From St. Marcelino International School. In which country? That's from Turkey, says Yasin. From Uganda. Wow, we have a nice mix of minds here this evening. Almost all our corners of the world. So, let us begin. Our topic for today is going to be talking a little bit more about soft skills. For any of you who have worked with us before, you know that we are focused on soft skills development, and it is my pleasure to discuss a little bit more directly with you how we can incorporate and implement this in the classroom, and also how we can identify this in the classroom. As many of you may know, this is part of a 3-workshop series where each time we will be taking on different soft skills based on challenges that I personally have faced in my classroom, as well as some of the other teachers that I have worked with. And hopefully this will help manage your classroom with a bit more ease and perhaps get a bit of an insight as to why some students do things in a certain way. So, firstly, who am I? My name is Carmen du Plessis. I'm originally from South Africa, and I have been working as a teacher in Kazakhstan for the past 3 years. Initially, I went to school for law and human resource management, which is where my love of soft skills began. And I decided a few years ago to make a career change into teaching, as my mother and sister are also in education. So this seems to be the natural draw for our family. And that is how I got involved with Owlypia, where I also work as an outreach member and have been for about 4 months now. So, if this is your first time coming across Owlypia, we are a soft skills development program. We aim to prepare students for their life beyond school, whether this be going directly into work or going to a higher academic institution. Soft skills have a beautiful universality to them, that they are always going to be applicable no matter what the age. And we believe teaching students from as young as possible these skills gives them the best chance to master them. Our program focuses on students aged 9 all the way through to aged 18. And we develop these skills through our integrated LMS system and, of course, our fabulous competitions, which I'm hoping some of you have had the privilege of seeing. So, as I have asked you before, we've discussed a little bit of our names, we've discussed a little bit of our countries, but the question I've not asked you yet is, which age groups are you currently teaching? So could I kindly ask, you're welcome to share with me, or again, you're welcome to type in the chat, which age students, how old are your students? Okay, 3 to 10. Oh, lovely. Such a mix. I think it's almost 3 different degrees to cover that age range. I think that can be quite a challenge. 14 to 16, that is also my current teaching group. I quite like them. 9 to 10, a lovely group. Both kindergarten and primary, yes. And it's that early preparation and the preparing them for real school and the actual school. It's quite hectic, I think. 11 to 16, that's equally a big range. They're from preteen to teen. Oh, I imagine that can also take some patience. Teaching students from both middle and high school as well for SME. Oh my goodness. I think that can be a challenge. Brilliant. Well, that definitely gives me a good picture of which students we are talking about when we discuss these skills. With soft skill developments, it is one of those things that our approach changes with the age of the student in front of us based on their emotional maturity and their understanding. So it's always important for me to understand if all our teachers are teaching teenagers, then we have that conversation. If we are teaching children, we have that conversation. If it's even before that, well, then even so. Now, I will mention specifically, I believe it was Bianca who said she had 3-year-olds. Normally, our soft skill development begins around about age 4. So with a 3-year-old, some of the skills that I mentioned today may not work as well. But for 4 upwards, you should be fine. Okay, lovely. So, beginning with what are soft skills? Now, the first thing that we need to separate is hard skills from soft skills. When it comes to hard skill development, this is what you would be teaching your students in your classrooms. These abilities are measurable. We can give a test. We can see what level a student is understanding or achieving these things. We are able to teach them these skills, and we are able to provide some sort of feedback to enhance it or to improve it later. Now, technical skills include everything from playing a musical instrument, playing a sport, doing mathematics, programming, you name it, and it's in the hard skills section. Now, soft skills, I like to define as personality skills. Personality skills focus a little bit more on who we are and what kind of people we are. Normally, for example, if we take a person who describes themselves as creative, as kind, as smart, all of these descriptions can be connected to an individual soft skill that can be grown and developed. Now, I'm sure that you guys know just as well as I do that for some of our students, these skills occur very naturally. And this is very possible. Some of our students are almost born with a natural tendency to some skills, or their environment could strongly foster a certain skill, or the classroom environment you have created could be growing a specific soft skill for them. So a combination of those 3 factors makes some skills a little bit easier and some skills sometimes a bit harder. Now, this is something that, as I said, is going to affect our students for the rest of their lives. Even here, as I'm sitting in front of you today, I know that my soft skills are not perfectly developed. There are so many things that I personally still want to work on and develop to improve myself and even improve myself as a teacher and as a person. So when we discuss these skills, it is important not to only think of them in terms of our students, but in terms of our own development as well. So let's talk about our different types of soft skills. Now, I must admit, for our presentation today, I have chosen a slightly more simplistic breakdown of our soft skills. In reality, there are so many of them that it is near impossible to take one presentation and just summarize them all in. But I thought that this could give you a nice idea of the core values that we are looking for. So, starting with our first one, communication. Written communication, spoken communication, and active listening. When it comes to communication, these are skills that can apply directly to our students who are especially teenagers and higher, with skills like written and spoken communication being slightly less important for our younger students. However, a skill like active listening can be applicable across the board. So with some of these skills, we do have the ability to pick and choose and say, this one is perfect for them, this one not yet. Interpersonal effectiveness is, I always say to the student, the longest word for the simplest of meanings. Interpersonal effectiveness is how we are with other people. This can involve being very empathetic. This can involve resolving our conflict and working well with others. Self-management, time management, adaptability, any ability with personal motivation or self-starting ability, those things all fall within self-management. Strong work ethic, also very much in that area. Our thinking skills, now these are the set of skills that I feel in some ways I don't need to tell you as much about. And even though I do have some focus on some of our thinking skills for our presentations, these are skills that students can learn quite naturally from school already. If we have any math teachers, for example, math teachers are already teaching a degree of problem solving. Understanding that when we face a question, steps need to be taken before a solution can be reached, can impact our psychology in a way that already builds a good understanding of how to solve problems. Interestingly, if we have any music teachers around, this can equally be developed with music. So problem-solving skills is something that we may start to see come up in students who are multi-talented especially. Likewise with critical thinking and creativity. When we think about the soft skills of our thinking skills, we don't separate creativity and intelligence the way that some other metrics might. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the left brain, right brain kind of thinking. We consider all of these to be part of our cognitive development. And so in terms of our soft skills development, it does not matter what you are growing as long as it is contributing to the thinking skills. And I'm sure you will begin to see there is a lot more overlap than we might expect. Coming to number 5, this is a set of skills that is definitely not my primary focus in our presentations. Leadership capabilities do occur naturally in some students, but we expect these abilities to start really being harnessed only in our mid to late 20s realistically, or starting from our work-going age, whatever we consider that to be. So this is not necessarily something that we need our students to be perfect at just yet. This is an ability that can be acquired later in life. So we're not too concerned about those just yet. Emotional intelligence, however, begins from the earliest of ages. It is the most liquid of our soft skills, meaning that what we expect changes with every single milestone that our children pass. And our emotional intelligence involves things like maturity and our key topic for today, emotional regulation. Now, the first thing that I want to see is if we have some strengths amongst our teachers in some of these skills. So I have given you some questions for each of these skills, and I want you, if you want to write them down, you are welcome to do so. And at the end, I want to know what are your personal strengths and your personal weaknesses. So starting with communication skills, do you express your ideas clearly in writing? For number 2, do you write messages that others easily understand? Do you speak clearly and express your thoughts when talking? Do you adjust how you speak depending on who you are talking to? Do you listen without interrupting? And do you ask questions to make sure you are understood clearly? You're welcome to share with me in the chat if you feel that communication is one of your strengths or maybe an area of improvement. Now that mostly is, for me, my favorite word when we talk about soft skills development. That is an answer I like to see. It is important that we always maintain a good sense of self-awareness when it comes to these skills. Oh, that is a good one. I will admit number 5 is definitely not my strength. Let's see, would anybody else like to share if you think that communication is one of your strengths, perhaps your answers to these questions? Thank you very much. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Miss Aigun. Ah, brilliant. Happy to hear it. All right, let's move forward to our next one, interpersonal effectiveness. Now, this starts with, do you try to understand other people's opinions? Do you stay respectful during disagreements? Do you handle conflict constructively? Meaning that if we face a difficulty, is this something that we think of as a learning opportunity or something that might have an emotional or personal impact on us? With number 4, do you contribute positively in team discussions? Number 5, do you support your colleagues when they need help? And number 6, do people feel comfortable approaching you? Again, you are welcome to share with me in the chat. For now, let me progress to our next one. Personal self-management. Oh, I see Mr. Shinon Yerim says that this is a strong skill for him. Very good. I'm happy to hear it. Generally, we can see people with strong interpersonal effectiveness having generally the ability to build very strong relationships with people. So again, this is a lovely skill to have, especially when we are working with our children. Okay, personal self-management. Do you plan your time effectively? Do you meet deadlines consistently? Do you stay productive without needing consistent and constant supervision? Do you, do you remain calm under pressure? Do you adapt when plans or priorities change? And do you take responsibility for mistakes? Now, this is one of those skills that I'm sure when you are looking at it as an adult, we can be very realistic about these things and say, well, I have to do these things in order to be effective with my work, in order to be a good educator. We have to do these things. But when it comes to our young students, this is something that can take some time and some effort to really get used to for them. Especially I've noticed with my teenagers, deadlines still can sometimes prove to be a challenge. Oh, very nice. Okay, see, we're feeling good about self-management. Now let's think about our personal thinking skills. Do you analyze situations before making decisions? Do you focus on solutions rather than only on problems? Do you think of creative or alternative approaches? Do you question information before accepting it as true? Do you learn from past experiences? And do you break complex problems into smaller steps? I see what you are saying, Bianca. I think with even with these kinds of skills, I always see myself going, most of the time, yes, but I remember that one day that was a bit more challenging in this area. Delina says yes to all. Very good. Okay. Mostly yes, trying to with, do you focus on solutions rather than on problems? I understand that one very well. Okay, very, very nice. Especially, I think having the ability to deconstruct can be very, very useful here. In fact, this is something that I'm going to be discussing a little bit with the kids this week, and I think that is going to be a very exciting presentation to explain to them how to break down problems into smaller sections. Okay, leadership capabilities. Now, remember when we think of leadership, don't worry too much about if you're currently in a leadership role. We are looking more at your potential and your ability, even on smaller or greater scales. So you don't have to be a principal to have strength in these areas. So number 1, do you take initiative when something needs to be done? Number 2, do you help others stay organized and focused? Number 3, do you delegate tasks when working in a group? Number 4, do you give constructive feedback? Number 5, do you think about long-term goals, not just immediate tasks? And number 6, do you help others grow or develop their skills? Now, I imagine all of us sitting here today probably are, as a team lead, very nice. All of us here probably have number 6 in common. I think this is what we do as educators. And even though we might not always necessarily equate the two things so directly, being a teacher is in some ways a leadership role. We are leading a generation of students into the future. Let us move on to our final slide on this report, emotional intelligence. Nasamba, I see you're doing quite well on the leadership capabilities. Very nice. Okay, self-recognition. Do you recognize your emotions as they happen? Do you manage your reactions in stressful situations? Do you avoid letting frustration control your behavior? Do you notice how others are feeling? Do you respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively? And do you recover quickly after setbacks? Mm-hmm. 4, 5, and 6, was it? Okay. I'm not seeing any definitely yes with number 3 yet. Okay, and 6 working on 5. Responding thoughtfully instead of impulsively. That one can be a challenge. 1, 3, and 4. Others I'm trying. A respectable answer. Strong belief emotional intelligence could be one of the most important aspects. I 100% agree with you there. I think that when it comes to emotional intelligence, especially when we are teaching children, this can be the first thing they learn from us and our behavior. So it is one of those skills that we always have to consider what we are presenting to our children. So I do agree with you a little bit there, Miss Bianca. All right. So with that in mind, I've heard a little bit, exactly, and especially if you're working with children from ages 3, you are one of maybe 3 adults that they see on a regular basis. So absolutely, you become such a strong role model for them. So I've had the privilege of hearing a little bit about your strengths, but out of curiosity, which skill do you think is your area of improvement that you might still need to do some work on? Ooh, those are important ones. I would agree with it. I think I myself find my patience being tested a bit too often sometimes. Being a good listener. I completely understand that one. Any other ideas you're welcome to share with me in the chat? Active listener to my team. Okay. I see Miss Eigen must be a bit of a creative over there. Understanding others from their situation, that is one of those trickier ones for sure. I've noticed listening is one of those skills that we can sometimes find very difficult. And that is why we earmark this as one of those skills we need to teach children from as early as possible, because it becomes a little bit harder to grow as we grow older. Taking in other people's criticisms positively, I completely understand that one as well. I myself tend to be a bit sensitive when it comes to criticism. So reframing it in my mind as a positive is one of those areas of improvement for me as well. Brilliant. Thank you very much for your candor. I appreciate your sharing, everyone. Now, let's talk a little bit about our children. So, as I've mentioned, children develop soft skills from as young as 2 years old. Now, they can develop this from basically from the adults in their lives, their parents, from yourself as a teacher. They can develop this from their siblings and friends. They can develop this even through their imagination, how they play already can be a window into their mind of their soft skills, and how they interact with others in this environment is a strong indicator of that. Guided experiences. What we mean by a guided experience can be something like this, where it is a focused class, a tour, an exhibition, and structured learning opportunities, something like a school, again, a class, a seminar, a webinar, whatever it may be. Now, again, this means that some of our students already will have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And a lot of this has to do with how much our children are exposed to. Unfortunately, and it pains me to admit this, but not all our students in the world will have access to the same opportunities. And this can often give a step up to some of our students who have a bit more awareness and ability to see the world around them. So this is something that we need to especially focus on when we know our children. Now, I've given you here, and this is not something I'm going to discuss in depth, but I have given you a bit of a summary here so that you can see what it would look like for your students to have strengths and have weaknesses in a certain area. One of the most important things I have learned about soft skills over the past few years, and especially over these past few months, has been that oftentimes what we think of as a good student and what we think of as a bad student because of their behavior. Again, instead of thinking of it that way, I like to carry it through to, do they have a strong skill in this area? And a lot of the time, students who we might think are not as good can often be lacking in a specific soft skill. Especially as I've noticed, I had one student in my class last year who I'd always get irritated with because he's always missing his deadlines, he's never remembering things. And when I took that and I realized, oh, he might be lacking in skills in self-management, it immediately allowed this to reframe my understanding of the situation. And that is why I've given you this chart, because this will allow you to understand what skills do your students really need, even from as young as 4 years old. So I've given you here the ones for communication, interpersonal effectiveness, and self-management. So just to look at the student need profile for these, a student who struggles to express their thoughts clearly, gives short or unclear answers, interrupts others, or misunderstands instructions. Then something like a student who argues, doesn't like teamwork, doesn't listen to others' ideas. Self-management, student who misses deadlines, gives up easily, becomes overwhelmed, struggles to adapt. Same thing when we look at our thinking skills. A student who waits for answers instead of trying to solve problems. Leadership, a student who avoids responsibility. Maybe they are not interested in being part of a group or cannot guide or support others. And lastly, a student who reacts very emotionally and struggles to manage their frustration. Now, this is, I think that I'm sure that you can see as teachers that this already encompasses a lot of the perhaps problem students that we see in our classrooms. Because in actuality, what makes a stronger or a slightly more difficult student is the natural abilities that students have in these areas. And it is technically possible by raising the soft skills in each of our students to reach a stage where all our students can respond and behave in a way that we desire. So we are looking at 5 core skills across our 3 workshops, starting with emotional self-regulation. This is one of those skills that I have seen time and time again with my students, especially a little while ago I was teaching children. And I noticed with children, they often struggle to express themselves when they find something difficult or when they don't fully understand. And this often comes out in very big emotional reactions. And I spend quite a lot of time trying to understand how to manage this. And that is why it is my very first presentation for you today. Coming then to problem solving, thinking how we can integrate more of these skills to develop this absolutely crucial skill for our children. Adaptability. Adaptability goes hand in hand with being resilient. Accepting these changes and being able to work and change with them is a vital skill our students need to learn. And the more adaptable they are from a young age, the easier it is for them to continue growing and working on the skill. Collaboration, especially when it comes to working with other students in the classroom, perhaps even working with yourself as the educator. And lastly, resourcefulness. Now, I've defined here resourcefulness as developing creative habits to utilize available tools and overcome obstacles. Now, when it comes to our resourcefulness, this is normally something we see that goes hand in hand with problem solving, where students are able to find solutions outside of the expected. So think of a more innovative or creative form of problem solving. And this is what we would call resourcefulness. Okay, so let us begin with our first scenario. During a lesson, the teacher asks students to complete a short writing task. Daniel begins working quickly, becomes frustrated when he cannot think of ideas. After a few minutes, he sighs loudly, puts his head down, and stops writing. When the teacher approaches and gently encourages him to try, Daniel reacts by saying, "This is stupid, I can't do this." He pushes his paper away and crosses his arms. Eventually, when a classmate accidentally bumps his desk, Daniel snaps, "Leave me alone," and raises his voice. He refuses further help and does not complete the task. Okay, my questions to you, dear educators, what went wrong and how do we support a student who is dealing with all this emotion? Any ideas you might have to prevent this from happening, to handle this when it happens? I would love to hear your input. Again, you are also welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like to discuss with me. I would not mind hearing from all of you as well. How old is Daniel? I will leave it up to you to decide. Delina says he's emotionally weak. Sit near to him and slowly deliver the contents. Like this idea. Daniel is a teenager. Okay. This is also, I think, a very important point to mention is that this is going to vary quite a lot depending on our students' ages. Would ask him what is not clear. Think that is can be a useful approach. Wanted to quickly reach a resolution. Didn't want to think about those steps. Yes. Seems like we are dealing with an elementary student. I don't know. With some of the teenagers you teach. Collect ideas on the board. I like that idea. Working sort of together as a group to come to a solution. That could be a good way. All right. I will keep an eye out if some more suggestions come on in the chat. Let us dive a little bit deeper with emotional regulation. Is it the first instance with Daniel? That is a very good question as well. Especially with students who have a lower soft skill. This will most likely not be the first incident. You also probably know that if you say to a fellow teacher, "I'm having problems with this student," more often than not, they're also having problems with that student. Nasamba says I would help him by encouraging him to calm down and take his time to create some beautiful ideas and encouraging him that he can do it. Love the positive approach here. I think that can be such an important step, especially when we are dealing with something that might be disruptive or challenging for us at times. Okay, let us talk a little bit about emotional regulation. Emotional regulation means having a full sense of control over our own emotions. This can involve anything we do to stop ourselves from having a reaction to what we do when we have this big reaction. So sometimes we think a bit about masking or hiding a certain representation, hiding that anger, hiding that sadness. So what can this look like in the classroom? This would mean that students are able to see these emotions, they understand what they mean, but they can also manage them without it changing, without it becoming the primary focus of their day. And of course, this would mean that when challenges arise, they can respond to it without it being necessarily a negative thing for them. Again, going hand in hand with that adaptability. Now, this is, of course, the ideal. And if we could say this to all our students and they suddenly started doing it, that would be amazing. But unfortunately, it's just not that simple. So let's start to understand, why can this be a challenge for some of our students? Firstly, this is not one of those things that comes automatically as we grow up. Babies who have difficulty self-soothing often become children who struggle with emotional regulation. So there is a lot of discussions, especially on when it comes to child rearing, and I will admit that is not my expertise at all. But there's a lot of conversation on the topic of, should we let babies self-soothe? And this is one of those things that we need to consider, what is the long-term implication of that before we take a decision. Okay, next, their environment. Now, the environment of the child can be very stable in some cases, very unstable in some cases. And a lot of our children's ability to emotionally regulate depends on that environment. So this can become a problem, interestingly, when parents are perhaps a little bit more involved. Because oftentimes, and I understand this perfectly when working with children, when we see a sad child, an unhappy child, even an angry child, we feel a sort of emotional responsibility to make them feel better. I think we all here can agree, if children didn't have to have any negative emotions ever, that would be such a wonderful thing. And I think that we as adults and as people who believe we perhaps could manage the situation often step in a little bit too quickly. And this means that children don't learn to emotionally regulate themselves. And that can be a very negative thing. As children, it is quite important that children develop this ability to calm themselves down without needing an external influence. And then lastly, and I mentioned this just as a precursor, if any of our teachers work with sort of special needs or neurodivergence, that there are certain aspects of neurodivergence that would make this a skill that takes a bit longer to grow. And this can also be seen in children with ADHD and even children who record high forms of anxiety, being a bit more prevalent in teenagers, but can still be prevalent in children as well. So when we see that we start seeing that a child is perhaps a bit stressed, we might want to take a bit more delicate approach to them, as this can be a skill that their emotions will make it more difficult for them to learn. So this is not something that I'm saying don't try teaching emotional regulation, not at all. Please, always try. It's just that we need to adjust our personal expectations accordingly. We might see results in some students a lot quicker than others, and that doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. So let's talk a little bit about scaffolding, because this is exactly where the problem comes in. If we are being too supportive, if we are consistently there to help our kids when they are struggling, they don't learn the skill by themselves. So instead, we need to support in a different way so that we can still help them learn the skill by themselves, but not take over that function. So let's discuss that a little bit. Starting with nurtured value. This is something that we need to guide students in. Think of taking their hand and crossing the road instead of thinking of carrying them. This is something that we are going to continue to guide until they are able to do it independently. Then we want to guide students to the correct answer. And this is why I like a question approach with students, especially with older students. From quite an early age, our students are not at all lacking in cognitive ability to understand situations. They can understand and solve and find the pieces for themselves. So if we are able to push them with some careful questioning, it is very possible that they will begin to see what is a better approach. Then, as I said, the goal is building this capacity so they don't need an adult presence. And we want them to grow consistently. So, starting by, how do we know if a student has an overt emotion? Overt meaning obvious, big, we can see it in their eyes. Now, there might be a specific case that you are thinking about in your mind. And importantly, when we think back, it's important to understand what happened that caused this. And oftentimes with students, it seems sometimes like there may not be an obvious cause. But if we go back and think to our scenario of Daniel, we can think, did we explain things in an easy enough way? Did we explain things that it looked like everyone understood? Did we give an opportunity to ask questions? Did we discuss enough examples? So what can we perhaps add here to make it a bit easier? And that can be a cause. And it's also important in this regard to see if you have any particular trends with a specific group where some things may cause bigger reactions than others. Especially for teachers teaching multiple subjects, there may be some topics that might be difficult and may result in something being a bit trickier for students. Now, importantly, before we need to worry if something is too big an emotion, it's important to think about how this impacted your classroom as a whole. Unfortunately, we cannot be the teacher only for one student in that moment. So some emotions that are expressed are not necessarily as concerning as others. We are not trying to teach our children not to have any emotions. So if this was something that was perhaps small, that was a bit more personal for the student, if we see one student looks slightly upset, but they're not impacting our class dynamic in a negative way, it is sometimes okay to leave that student to work through what they're doing and offer them support later or after, and not bring attention to that. Now, the key thing that we are trying to avoid is that things like irritability and nervousness can turn into aggressive outbursts or emotional outbursts. Now, I'm sure we understand the difference here, but let's just think back to our example of Daniel. Did Daniel have an emotional outburst or an aggressive outburst? Emotional at the start, yes. So especially when we think of aggressive outbursts, this is going to be a highly mobile, lots of movement. This could be throwing things, hitting other children. This could be, we see with some, especially teenagers, they might hit something else, like the table, throw a chair, something along those lines. So with Daniel, we can see that this reaction was a lot more about his emotions. Definitely irritability, I think, was a strong start. However, I would say that in my personal experience, and this might be my own shortcoming as a teacher, it's often for me difficult to see the difference between irritability and nervousness. Because I see with some of my students, if they struggle to solve something, some of them can get irritable and some of them can get nervous, and it looks exactly the same to me at times, as they may not be able to identify this specifically for me, especially at a younger age. Okay, so this is something that, again, I like to step away from terms like tantrums or the child is too sensitive, because again, I don't find these constructive or helpful. I understand that the child had an overt emotion and that this was something that we need to manage and try and prevent in the future. So let's start by seeing how we can do this. The first thing, this is going to be especially important with younger children. Younger children, I believe it is up to age 8 or 9, cannot emotionally stop themselves. Unfortunately, it takes a considerable amount of their emotional energy to stop themselves, and that sort of exceeds their ability a little bit. So they have to process the emotion. Now, the first thing that we can do when we are dealing with children who are this young is give them the space to do so. If you are able to allocate a corner of your classroom, a separate area, somewhere where they don't disturb other children, but can still process their emotions. For some students, for some children, this might mean creating. I had a teacher who called it her cuddle corner because she had all kinds of like teddy bears and things there. And she said, if you want to have a cry, go to the cuddle corner. And for some students, especially students who tend to have aggressive outbursts, it may be good to have an area where they can express this. Again, somewhere soft, somewhere secure. If they need to throw something, give them something soft to throw that won't cause any damage or hurt other students. If this is possible, this is something that can be very helpful to younger children. Now, when children are older, especially if you feel they will be safe functioning independently, so I think from about 10 upwards, movement breaks can be extraordinarily helpful. And this is something I also recommend if you are noticing that one of your students may struggle with ADHD. Taking a break, when you notice a student's emotion is starting to build, have them take a walk, even if it's a walk inside the room, if it's a walk outside for 2 minutes, have them come back. Oftentimes, this movement allows our brains to start getting the blood pumping a little bit, get the oxygen flowing, and it allows us to activate that problem-solving mechanism a little bit quicker. So this is something that can be especially helpful for teenagers, I've noticed. With my teenagers, I always tell them if you need to take a break, take a walk outside, do a walk around the building, and then come back to me. And giving students a little bit more freedom to do this. Of course, you want to make sure that students are not taking advantage of this, but allowing that can sometimes make a small difference in getting them more prepared. And during that time, they are building the skill for themselves. So you are not necessarily having to be too involved with that. Now, a reward system can also be beneficial in this regard. I was recently looking more into the IB system, as I'm sure some of you may be already familiar with it. And we focus quite heavily in this system on the idea of tracking students' progress. And something like this for emotional regulation can be extraordinarily beneficial, where if a situation became stressful, we reward students who are able to stay calm. And especially we reward students who are able to stay calm who previously did not show this behavior, to develop that positive connotation to this. Now, what you consider reward in this regard can be big, it can be small. Anything from candy to a sticker to 5 minutes of class to not completing the homework, that is up to you. Okay. Now, mimic and mime is something that I often do with my teenagers. And this is where if students react in a particular way, I copy that behavior back to them after they've calmed down, very, very importantly, because you don't want to embarrass them or aggravate the situation. But this is something that you are able to show them, recreate that situation, and you can respond like them, or you can show them how you respond in a similar behavior. In both of those cases, how you respond will create a good role model for them. If you copy them, it may make them understand that this was perhaps not the best way to react to a scenario. You can do this with younger children as well, but for younger children, I recommend copying the ideal behavior. So recreate the situation, but you enact the positive behavior you want your students to copy. Lastly, something like a sharing circle. This is again especially nice for younger children. It is possible with teenagers as well, but teenagers tend to not be as open in sharing, especially in a very large group. So with this, what I would recommend is sitting with your children and having them each discuss some of the challenges that they faced emotionally in that day. This will bring to the last part of what I'm going to discuss today, but it will allow students to truly reflect on their emotions and make sure that they're handling this well. If you have one student with a specific incident, once they have come out of the emotional safe space that you've created for them, take a moment to discuss with them. You don't have to offer advice, you don't have to offer an opinion or feedback. All you need to do is listen to what they have to say. This is, of course, absolutely perfect for our active listening practice, but also gives our students a calm response and prevents students from perhaps becoming, what is the nice word for it, ashamed or shy about sharing their feelings later, and can be a good step to getting them used to communicating instead of reacting. So that is what brings me to our feedback. Feedback is non-judgmental, it's non-emotional. This is the moment where I ask you as educators to sit with as blank a face as possible, because you don't want to impart your emotions on the situation. Now, I am one of those people that unfortunately, when people talk to me, my face tells you exactly what I'm feeling. And it can be very difficult when teaching sometimes. I have to think, okay, what is my face doing right now? But when we are conversing for children, and this is going to be true of all ages, children are remarkably sensitive to our expression, to our body language, to our tone of voice. They might notice these things even before they understand the words coming out of our mouth. I was recently talking to my children where I showed them a video, and we are in Kazakhstan, and I showed my students a video in French, and I asked them what happened. And this was for an age group of 12-year-old students, where they were able to deduce certain aspects of the conversation just based on the tone becoming more aggressive or more friendly. So this is something that is very important to keep in mind, how we communicate with our kids. So I recommend avoiding phrases like, why did you do this? And focusing a little bit more on phrases like, what happened? What will you do next time? What kind of support can I offer you? Okay. If your student is open about saying they need a moment to move away, they need a moment to walk around, they need a moment to just step away from the situation, or perhaps if there's a consistent aggravator, something like a fellow student or something wrong with the environment where they're sitting, even something like offering to move them or offering to assist them with that can be especially helpful. Now, again, we do not want to be the scaffolding for our, we want to be the scaffolding, not the entire emotional regulation for our students. But that doesn't mean that students shouldn't be able to trust you and talk to you. So we want to still give students a room to express their feelings, even if we don't solve any of these problems for them. Okay, so unfortunately, I will not have too much time to discuss these scenarios, but I would like to mention just some general pieces of advice. Now, some reactions can make bigger reactions. So again, focus on being neutral. We don't want to coddle. We don't want to give too much love and too much, it'll be okay, don't worry about it. Sometimes we have to let it go. And I know it is so difficult, especially with small children. It is so difficult to see them be unhappy. So this is something that I really want you to be very careful of. And before you go and hug them and try and make them feel better, give them the space to see if they can figure it out for themselves. Then also we need to control our own reactions. We can't control big. If we show our students it is okay to scream, it is okay to yell, it is okay to get frustrated, they will copy that behavior. You set the tone for the expectation in that classroom, and especially with young children, they will immediately use that. So that is very, very important. Then if you are rewarding your students, if you're using a reward mechanism in your class, please be very, very careful that you maintain this for them. You don't want your students to feel like you are untrustworthy because you break your promises towards them. This is going to lead them to not regarding you as a good example for them to learn from, or perhaps not trusting you to explain what they are feeling. And that will immediately take away your role as an emotional regulation teacher for them. So please be very cautious of this. And the last thing is that change is going to be difficult. So if you know that a plan is changing, something's being cancelled, there's been a disruption to the school schedule, this is something that you will especially need to spend some time with. It is difficult for children if we just announce to them the change. You want to explain to them what is happening, why it's happening, what will happen instead. Give them as much information as you can, give them a bit of support. Oftentimes we might want to take this moment to do something fun and exciting if they were expecting to do something exciting that day. Anything you can do to support them during change, that would be ideal, because this is something that can very easily bubble up those emotions. So please be very, very cautious, especially if it's something they really, really wanted. Okay, now, the last thing that I should mention is that I've suggested to you 5 techniques. You will notice that I do not have a breathing technique, and I just want to address this quickly. One of the more popular mechanisms that we see is for emotional regulation is to take 3 deep breaths. And this is something that I've noticed recently in parental psychology, teaching psychology, and soft skill development. They don't teach anymore, mainly because it does very little to help the big reaction. It can prevent the big reaction, but the cognitive level that we are at needs to be there already. So that's why the movement breaks has sort of replaced that in our thinking. If you as a person, as a grown adult, find that taking 3 deep breaths helps you, there's nothing wrong with that. But so please continue to do so. And if you feel this is something you teach your children, you are welcome to do so. But I would say that this is something that's proven to not be effective for all children across the board. So movement breaks instead. Now, any of these techniques that we suggest to you, they're most likely not going to work the first time. They might not work the second or the third time. And that is natural. The unfortunate thing with these behaviors and with all our soft skills is that one good day does not make for a learned skill. It takes so much consistency in how we handle this for students to actually understand how to emotionally regulate. For younger children, I would recommend thinking about what technique you want to use and using that one technique, not moving between them, because children are going to learn best from consistency. For teenagers, even for adults, we are able to move between them as we understand how to solve specific problems with specific solutions. But for younger kids, especially at the 4-5 age, we want to give a specific mechanism and have them work with that. On a subconscious level, they are emotionally regulating. On a conscious level, they are replicating a pattern. And that is still going to be the best way for them to learn. Thank you very, very much to all of you for taking the time today to listen to what we have to say. Before I close up for today, I'm happy to take any questions anyone may have. Oh, thank you very much, Icon. I'm very glad to hear it. Our next session, now that we are talking about it, is problem solving and adaptability. I am very excited for this one. This will be next week, Thursday again. So I hope to see some of you returning for this class. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nasamba, for you, Miss Nansamba, for you as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, everyone.